If your lawyer never left the U.S., they can't protect your money from it. And I mean that literally because U.S. court orders don't travel well. In fact, they stop dead at the border. Yet every week I see people betting their entire fortune on advice from someone who's never structured a plan outside of a single zip code. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why your hometown lawyer is powerless against certain threats and how the right jurisdiction can legally make a U.S. judgment vanish into thin air. Hi, I'm the business guy, the CEO of the Lawyers Limited Law Firm and Asset Protection Planners. I've been in the asset protection field for 34 years, and I've been setting up Cook Islands trusts for nearly 30 of them, more than any other firm in the world. So stick with me for the next few minutes, and you'll know more about offshore protection than 99% of attorneys practicing in the U.S. today. And if you want the same level of protection my clients get, go to assetprotectionplanners.com. You get a whole lot of free information there. So here's the first thing they don't teach in most U.S. law schools. A court order in Dallas doesn't mean a thing in Dominica. A judgment in Chicago gets no automatic respect in the Cayman Islands. And that's not because they don't like Americans. It's because sovereignty matters. Every country has the right to decide which foreign court orders they'll recognize. Some will enforce them if they pass through a local court process. Others, like the Cook Islands or Belize, go even further in that they have laws specifically saying, we don't care what a U.S. judge says, you'll have to start from scratch here under our rules. So now imagine your local lawyer, smart and hardworking, probably great at getting you out of a speeding ticket or drafting your will, walking into a courthouse in Rarotonga thinking their U.S. license is going to carry weight. The judge would be polite, but inside they're thinking, who is this person and why are they talking? The biggest danger I see is this. Clients go to a lawyer who has never handled a cross-border asset protection case. The lawyer says, don't worry, we'll just put it in an LLC or an irrevocable trust right here in the States. Sounds fine until you realize U.S. courts have jurisdiction over those structures. And this means that if a judge here orders you to hand over the assets, you hand them over. If you refuse, you're in contempt of court, and contempt doesn't go away. In fact, I've seen people sit in jail cells for months, sometimes years, because the court believed they still have the power to comply. The harsh truth, when your structure is domestic, the fate is domestic. And if your lawyer doesn't have tools outside of those borders, you're boxed in from day one. And I'm not saying your lawyer is bad for not knowing any more than the foot doctor is bad for not knowing brain surgery. I mean, offshore asset protection is a specialty, and we happen to be the largest firm in the world that sets up offshore asset protection structures. So let's talk about the magic word jurisdiction. This isn't just legal jargon. It's the reason the wealthy sleep at night while others toss and turn. When your assets are in a properly set up offshore trust in the right jurisdiction, the rules change completely. In the Cook Islands, for example, they don't recognize U.S. judgments. A creditor has to start a brand new lawsuit, a brand new case there under local law. The statute of limitations for challenging a transfer into the trust is often as short as 1 to 2 years, sometimes even 0 in the case of Belize. And the plaintiff has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt in some situations, the same standard as a murder trial. So here's the kicker. Legal fees in these jurisdictions are not recoverable by the plaintiff. So even if they want to sue you there, it's like climbing a mountain with a backpack full of bricks. It's expensive, exhausting, and rarely worth it. Now, there's one structural move that makes this protection bulletproof, but it's also the one that 90% of lawyers have never heard of. And I'll show you exactly how it works in just a minute. Let me tell you about 2 real-world cases, anonymized but 100% true. Client 1, we'll call him Mike. Mike owned a chain of car dealerships. He had a good local lawyer who set up domestic LLCs in a trust. Then one of his dealerships sold an SUV with a faulty repair. Tragically, that SUV was involved in a fatal accident. The lawsuit was massive and it named him personally. Because everything was domestic, the plaintiff's attorney got a court order freezing accounts and seizing assets before Mike could even respond. The trust pierced. The LLCs collapsed under charging orders. Mike lost properties, liquid assets, and control over his financial future in under a year. Okay, now client number 2, let's call her Sarah. Sarah was a medical device entrepreneur, and before launching her product, she came to us. We set up a Cook Islands trust with the Cook Islands LLC inside of it. She was the manager of the LLC, full control while the waters were calm. But the trust agreement allowed our licensed bonded trustee law firm to step in only if a lawsuit or court order threatened her assets. And sure enough, 2 years later, she faced a product liability suit. Her U.S. lawyers got hit with discovery demands for her personal bank accounts. We stepped in. The LLC was offshore. The bank account was offshore in Switzerland in this case. The U.S. court order had no effect. The plaintiff's lawyer would have had to start from scratch 6,000 miles away under rules designed to protect her. They didn't even try the case. Case settled for nuisance value. Now here's the move that I teased earlier. Offshore trust with an offshore LLC combination. The trust holds the LLC holds the bank accounts, the brokerage accounts, or even loans secured against your U.S. property. You're the LLC manager when things are calm, meaning you keep access to the money, your investment control, your lifestyle. But when a lawsuit strikes, management of the LLC shifts to the offshore trustee company law firm temporarily. And here's the genius part. Under U.S. law, you can't be forced to repatriate the assets that you don't control. So it's like a legal force field that activates only when you're under attack. Now, some people think they can just DIY this with an online template. Well, that's a disaster waiting to happen. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. The internet's full of bargain trust kits. Fill in your name, wire a few $100, poof, instant protection, right? Wrong. Here's what those kits leave out. Compliant with both U.S. and foreign reporting laws, proper trustee licensing and bonding, jurisdictional drafting that actually triggers the offshore protections. And without those, your trust can be ignored by a court or worse, deemed fraudulent. And that's why you want a specialty law firm like ours involved who know the offshore structure and who know the compliance with your local laws. We've been called in to fix dozens of these paper trusts after the fact. Sometimes it's too late. So if your enemy is already in the castle, there's no point in raising the drawbridge. So here's the takeaway. A local lawyer can be brilliant inside of their own jurisdiction, but asset protection, the best asset protection, is a global game. I mean, you wouldn't hire a football coach to manage your Formula One race. When you have wealth worth protecting, you need structures that work where you don't live. This means understanding which countries will cooperate with a U.S. court and which ones will just smile and nod and quietly file that court order in the recycling bin. In fact, I've spent decades building relationships in these protective jurisdictions. So when the time comes, you have the right fortress in the right place, ready to close the gates. So if your lawyer has never worked in the Cook Islands, Belize, or Nevis like we have, or similar jurisdictions, they simply don't have the tools to shield you from the full range of threats. But we do, and we've set up more Cook Islands trusts than any firm in the world. So feel free to go to assetprotectionplanners.com and let's make sure that your wealth is truly beyond the reach of a U.S. court. Because once the lawsuit starts, it's too late to wish you had.